Hey guys, as we wind down tonight, we're slipping quietly into a side alley behind the tanner's house. It smells like boiled hooves and fear. The sky is a dull slate, no stars, just the kind of night where everything feels slightly damp, even your soul. You're barefoot, of course. You lost your shoes last week. Maybe someone stole them. Maybe you did. It's hard to say. You're a thief now. Not the glamorous kind from stories, or like the kind who hides a single onion under their shirt and hopes the guards are feeling philosophical tonight. You don't steal for thrills. You steal because everything else ran out. Options, money, family, dignity, all filed under missing. And now it's you, a stolen crust of bread, and a prayer whispered to a god who doesn't patrol this neighborhood. You might not survive this one. Not because the guards are clever. They aren't. But because the gutters are slick. The punishment is public. And your last meal was half a radish someone sneezed on. So, before you settle in, feel free to give the video a like and hit subscribe if you're truly enjoying the journey. It helps more than you know. You can also leave a comment. Let me know where you're listening from and what time it is there. It's always a small wonder to see people tuning in from so many corners of the world. Now, dim the lights, maybe turn on a fan for that gentle hum in the background, and together, let's ease into tonight's story. You don't wake up one day and decide to be a thief. You drift into it, slowly, like sinking into a puddle that looks shallow, but somehow goes up to your waist. Maybe your family ran out of flour again. Maybe you ran out of family. Either way, this morning starts like most, with the smell of something cooking that you're not invited to eat. It wafts from someone else's hearth, probably turnips again, but to your empty stomach, it smells like roast goose in glory. You follow your nose until you realize it's coming from the Lord's kitchen. Again, and no, they're not sharing. You find a crust of bread in the dirt. You hesitate. Not because it's dirty, that's the least of your problems, but because last time you picked one up, it belonged to someone, and you still have the bruises to prove it. You steal it anyway. It's hard enough to chip a tooth, hard enough to make you question your life decisions, but also food. You eat it behind a fence that smells like wet wool and questionable goats. Your teeth hurt, your pride hurts, but at least your stomach stops making that noise. The one that sounds like a dying bird trapped in a bucket. You think you're done for the day? Survival? Achieved. But no, someone saw you. A child. Cruel one. The kind with all their teeth and no empathy. They tell a tanner, who tells a reeve, who tells a guard, who tells another guard louder. Soon you're not hiding. You're running. Again, your feet slap the ground like raw fish. You're barefoot again. You trip on a bucket. You try to climb a fence. The fence wins. You're caught, not by strategy, just by gravity and bad coordination. Maybe this time they'll be merciful. Maybe they'll just yell, "No." This is the town where mercy is stored in a locked chest with no key, and the lock is ornamental. Just a metaphor to make you feel worse. They drag you to the stocks. It's cold. It's always cold. Your shirt is too thin. Your pride is too loud. And someone throws a turnip at your head. You'd like to eat it, but now it's muddy. And also your eye hurts. You wonder how this became normal. You weren't born a thief. You were born hungry, cold, small. One lost blanket away from pneumonia, and one cracked egg away from dinner. Over time, the lines blur. Borrowing becomes stealing. Scraps become survival. And you become a problem that polite people pretend not to see. Someone calls you a menace. You want to ask them if they've ever tried sleeping on a roof because the stable was full. You don't. Your mouth is full of bread crust again. Someone else dropped it near the stocks. Maybe on purpose, maybe not. Doesn't matter, you eat it anyway. It was just one egg, not a golden egg. Not a nobleman's swan egg guarded by armored poultry. Just an ordinary, slightly speckled, probably lukewarm egg that had rolled out of someone's market basket while they argued about cabbage prices. You waited, you watched, you performed the intricate, dignified dance of pretending not to care, a routine you've mastered over years of watching food you couldn't touch. The egg sat on the dirt like an offering from the gods, the petty sarcastic gods. You pick it up. It's warm in your hand, not warm like kindness, warm like it was just recently inside a chicken. You cradle it like treasure. like hope, like protein. But fate, as always, finds you boring and punishable. The constable sees you. He's always there, like mold or guilt. And this one has a mustache that looks like it was painted on in anger. He doesn't even ask questions. Thief, he grunts. You try to explain? It rolled. No one claimed it. If anything, doing a public service, cleaning. He doesn't laugh. Instead, he drags you by your collar, which rips immediately, because of course it does. Now you're collarless and still guilty. You're marched to the square. Crowd forms, the way crows form when they smell something about to die. The egg smashed in your pocket during the scuffle. Now it's yoke and shame on your only tunic. The crowd pretends to gasp, but really, they're bored. You are the day's snack between gossip and supper. Out walks the punishment man. He's not a judge. He's not a priest. He's just a guy, a man with a stick and a need for attention. He smells like dried meat and old sweat. His tunic has blood on it. Not your blood. That comes later. He gives a speech. Not about justice. Not about law. About morals. You are lectured about honesty by a man who once tried to sell a dead rat as a fertility charm. You nod. He doesn't like that. You stop nodding. Doesn't like that either. The punishment, not execution. Not today. Just something light. A few lashes. Maybe a day in the stocks. So maybe both, for variety. You wonder if this is the worst day of your life. It isn't. That was last winter, when you tried to steal turnips and ended up trapped in a pig pen overnight. This is just Tuesday. Afterward, you limp away. People avoid your gaze, not out of shame, but out of casual indifference. You smell like egg and rope. Your back stings. Your pride sulks. Find a spot behind the tannery. Again, you sit on something soft. It's not soft. It's damp. Possibly mold. Someone walks by, drops half a crust of bread. You look up. They don't stop. Was it charity? Was it coincidence? You eat it anyway. You try something bold today, not because you're brave. It's just because you're cold, underfed, and temporarily possessed by the ghost of a smarter person. You've been watching a merchant. He's loud, forgetful, and stores coins in a wooden box that he doesn't always lock. The box lives under a cloth, next to a barrel of pickled fish, and exactly 0 witnesses after sundown. Tonight, you make your move. You don't have real tools. What you have is a bent spoon you found behind the tavern, and a vague sense that locks aren't that complicated. After all, it's just wood and iron. Like furniture, but with secrets. You sneak in. The ground creaks like it's ratting you out. The air smells of brine, fish guts, and other decisions you now regret. You kneel beside the box, heart pounding in a way that feels noble, but is really just hunger wearing a cape. The spoon goes in. It does not behave. Bends further, snaps loudly, and now you just poking a locked box with what might as well be a twig from a particularly disappointing tree. You hear footsteps. Of course you do. This is what happens when you trust a spoon. You run. Or you try, your leg cramps. Of course it does. You ate nothing but half a cabbage core and 2 sips of beer foam today. You limp into the alley like a broken marionette. Someone throws slop water from a window. It hits you. You're wet, humiliated. And your only plan is to blame someone else if caught, maybe a fictional cousin, be a ghost. You hide behind a barrel. It's fish again. Always fish. Your eyes water. Your stomach grumbles. And your dignity curls up like a sick dog. You stay there until morning, hoping the smell will disguise your presence, or at least make people too nauseous to look closely. The next day, the merchant complains. He blames rats. You don't correct him. You nod sagely in the market crowd, pretending to be one of the concerned citizens. Your tunic still smells like fermented regret. No one notices. You try to feel clever. You aren't. But you're not in the stocks today, and that counts. Somewhere deep inside, you tell yourself you're learning. Strategy, tactics, timing. In reality, you're learning that spoons are not keys and fish barrels are not good hiding places. Later, you find half a turnip left in a discarded lunch basket. You sniff it. Questionable. You eat it anyway. You used to have shoes. Not good shoes. Not noble shoes. Just shoes made from stiff leather and a prayer, held together by string that gave up before you did. But even bad shoes are a kind of dignity. A kind of barrier between you and the world's opinion of your toes. You lost them last month. One fell apart mid-run. The other got borrowed by a fellow thief who swore he'd bring it back. He did not. You see him sometimes, wearing one of your shoes, one of someone else's, walking like a confused centaur. You don't argue. Footwear isn't worth a fight unless it's winter. Today, you walk barefoot through the village. The road is made of things that resent you. Pebbles with sharp opinions. Splinters from abandoned carts. Someone's tooth, probably. You step carefully, but not successfully. The mud is deceptive. It looks soft. It is not. It conceals rocks, bones, and the occasional nail with delusions of grandeur. You try to wrap your feet in cloth. It tears. Then again, the cloth wasn't even yours. You found it near the laundress's line, smelled it, decided it was passable, and tied it around your foot like a sad bouquet. It lasted 11 steps. You limp past a shoemaker's stall. He doesn't even look at you. It's not because he's rude, because he knows you aren't a customer. You're a warning. His shoes glint with polished buckles and smug soles. You stare too long? He coughs. You move along. There's a splinter in your heel now. It feels personal, like the wood near your schedule. You sit on a stone to pull it out. The stone is damp. It was a mistake. Everything you own is now slightly wetter and slightly more ruined. You pick at your foot like a medieval surgeon, whispering curses in 3 languages and one invented grunt as the splinter breaks. Half remains inside. You name it. Gregory, because now you're stuck together. You hobble to the well. The water's too cold. The ladle smells like moss and regret. You rinse your foot, then your hands, then your hope. You consider stealing shoes from the church, but you've seen their shoes. Sandals with holes older than your crimes. Maybe you'll find something near the dump heap. You don't. You find a broken clog, a dead rat, and a piece of rope that might become a future belt. You take the rope. The rat glares at you. You glare back. It blinks first. Victory. At night, your feet throb like tiny judgmental hearts. You tuck them into the crook of your arm and try not to remember what warmth used to feel like. You dream of boots, soft ones, magical ones, the kind that fit. In the morning, you step into the mud. It's still cold in the splinter. Gregory's still with you. You've decided to stop freelancing. Solo thieving, it turns out, is less mysterious rogue and more hunched figure eating beet peels behind a barn. You need allies, a crew, a name that inspires mild fear and possibly some hand gestures. You heard whispers of a gang, the knotted fingers, or was it the grimy palms? Doesn't matter, they have shoes. And someone said they'd eat meat twice a week. You find them behind the blacksmith's forge, where the soot hides most crimes, and the air smells like hot metal and despair. There are 3 of them. One is sharpening a knife on a rock. One is smoking something that smells like regret rolled in cabbage. And one is chewing on something suspiciously crunchy, possibly bones. You announce yourself with confidence. They laugh, not just a chuckle. A full, rolling laugh that makes one of them cough and the other slap his knee like he's trying to start a fire. You hold out your offering. An onion, your last one? They take it. They don't say thank you. They just keep laughing. One of them throws the onion in the air, catches it, and bites it like an apple. You wince. Not because of the bite, but because it was your onion. You explain your skills. You can climb low fences, can fit through small holes. You have experience running, falling, and lying under carts until people forget about you. You once stole a pie, or part of one. It was cooling on a windowsill. You only took the crust edge. For discretion, they ask if you have a knife. You show them your spoon. They laugh again. You leave. Not by choice. They tell you to go. One of them throws a fishbone at you. You dodge. Barely. It sticks into the dirt behind you like an insult. You consider picking it up. For soup, you decide against it. Pride, or what's left of it, wins this time. You walk back to your usual spot. Behind the tannery, near the barrels, where even flies are too sad to hover. You sit, you sulk, you smell like smoke and disappointment. You wonder what it's like to be feared or respected or full. A child walks by, offers you half a carrot. You take it. It's soft, slightly chewed. You eat it anyway. You tell yourself you don't need a gang. Gangs are loud, disloyal, smelly. You're quiet. Attendant. Also smelly, but that's circumstantial. You've survived this long with nothing but your wits, your spoon, and your no imaginary onion. Maybe that's enough. Your stomach growls. A dog barks at you. The wind changes direction and brings the scent of stew you can't afford. Somewhere nearby, a rooster mocks you for still being awake. You curl up in your cloak, which is more patch than fabric, and tell yourself, tomorrow you'll try again. Not with a gang, just with slightly less failure. You wanted a gang? What you got was Father Elric. He found you the day after the onion incident, while you were pretending to nap beside the church wall. Not for piety, but because it was the sunniest stone in town and you were tired of shivering in your own shadow. He approached slowly, like someone offering porridge that might have worms in it. Brother, he said, as if you'd been adopted into holiness without your consent. You look lost. You told him you were resting. He nodded like he didn't believe you, but wanted the lie to feel safe. Then he offered you a job, of sorts. Not a paying one, of course. This is the church. Payment is spiritual, which is to say, non-existent. You agreed anyway? Why? Because he promised soup. Should have asked what kind. You arrive the next morning, hands you a broom that's more twig than handle, and points toward a hallway that smells like damp wood and disappointed saints. Sweep, he says, and disappears into a doorway. You sweep? It doesn't help. The dust is ancestral. It's been here since monks invented silence. Then comes the real job. Sermon assistant. You fetch water. You carry candles. You try not to trip on the choir boys. One of them sneers at your feet. You try to forgive him, spiritually. He throws a pebble at you during the reading of the Psalms. You consider tripping him. You don't. You think that counts as growth. Father Elric calls you. Brother's still learning. You ask if that's your official title? Says no, it's aspirational. At lunch, you finally get your soup. It's hot. That's the good part. It also smells like boiled lint. That's the rest of it. You take a sip. It burns your tongue, but not your enthusiasm. You drink it slowly, gratefully, regretfully. You taste onion, barely. You wonder if it's your onion, the one they took, reborn in broth. You clean the altar next. Wax drips onto your sleeve. The rag disintegrates. The candle falls. Catch it, barely. Father Elric smiles like you passed a test you didn't know existed. You sleep in the corner of the nave that night. The stone is cold, but the roof doesn't leak. Much you dream of shoes again. This time they fit. This time they run faster. In the morning, you're sent to ring the bell. It's heavier than expected. It mocks you with every pull. You grunt. You sweat. You feel spiritually manipulated. Pigeon watches from the window, unimpressed. Later, Father Elric says you have potential. He offers you another task. You decline. Politely, then less politely, then quickly. You leave the church, with a full stomach, sore back, and a new understanding of the phrase, serving the Lord, which mostly involves furniture. Wax burns, and getting pebbles thrown at you by miniature choir demons. You sit behind the tannery again. Someone's left a crust of bread. It's not moldy. You eat it anyway. You see it in the early afternoon, glistening like a miracle someone forgot to lock up. A pie, real, round. Cooling on a window ledge like it's auditioning for a folktale. The crust is golden, the steam curls upward like it's practicing for heaven, and it smells divine. Apples, maybe, or onions disguised as apples. You don't care. It's round, warm, unattended, and for one brief deranged moment you believe it's meant for you. You look around. No shouting, no windows flying open, no angry baker with a ladle, just you, the pie, and a breeze that smells like butter and dreams. You approach casually. Casual, here, means limping quietly and pretending to examine a pebble while your stomach threatens to sue you for neglect. The ledge is low. Your heart is high. You reach out. So does the dog? You didn't notice it? How? Because it was under the table, waiting, like a furry vengeance demon. It launches. You yelp. It growls. You both make eye contact with the pie. Time slows. You dive. It leaps. It wins. Not gracefully. Not politely. Pie crashes to the ground like a tragedy in crust form. The dog devours half before you even blink. The other half, splattered, stepped on, ruined. You try to save a bit, a corner, flake, something. The dog snarls. You retreat. It follows. You run. It follows harder. You try to explain, mid-sprint, that the pie was unguarded, that fate put it there for both of you, that perhaps there's enough for sharing if we embrace the spirit of communal suffering. The dog barks. It's a bark that means no, and also I bite. You hide in a coop. It's not because it's smart, because it was the first open thing with walls. The chickens stare. You apologize. They disapprove. One pecks your ankle. Fair enough. Eventually, the dog wanders off, full proud, covered in pie like a smug criminal. You emerge, crust-streaked and feather-dusted. You smell like failure and poultry. Sit by a fence and reconsider your ambitions. You almost had it. You tasted the steam. Felt the moment. You didn't even get a bite. You find a bit of crust stuck in your sleeve. Tiny, pathetic, possibly dog-approved. You eat it anyway. Later, someone asks if you saw who took the pie. You shake your head solemnly and say, no, but I heard it was majestic. It was raining that day. The kind of rain that makes everything stick to your skin like judgment. The kind of rain that makes the sky feel sarcastic. You were under an awning, which is generous. It was more like a collapsed bit of roof, held up by faith, and a broom handle. You were damp, shivering, and extremely available for any opportunity that might pass within reach. And then it happened. Farmer's cart hit a rut, a sharp one. Cart wobbled like a drunk duck, and then thump. A sack tumbled off the back. Didn't burst, it didn't bounce, it just flopped. You waited. No one noticed. No one stopped. The cart rattled on, the farmer oblivious, possibly singing about grain or vengeance or whatever farmers sing when they think they're alone. The sack just sat there. A gift from gravity. You licked your lips, cautiously optimistic. You approached the sack like it might explode. It doesn't. You poke it. Solid, slightly squishy. Open it. Turnips. Dozens, maybe more. You don't cheer. You don't grin. You just whisper. Mine. Sling it over your shoulder like a victorious burglar in a bad song. It's heavier than you thought. Much heavier. The turnips must be emotionally dense. You wobble toward your hiding place behind the tannery, already planning your meals. Boiled turnip. Roasted turnip. Imaginary turnip pie. Then comes the sound. Boots. Loud ones. Wet ones. You freeze. A guard. Just one. Eating a pear. He looks at you. You look at the sack. He looks at the sack. You smile. He squints. Yours you nod. Too fast. Too wide. Looks like Farmer Bennett's. You shrugged. A shrug that says, maybe and please don't arrest me at the same time. He walks on. You don't move for 3 whole minutes. Then, victory. You hobble the rest of the way home, back aching, sack sagging, tunic soaked. You dump the turnips into a pile like a pirate unveiling treasure. Except your treasure smells like dirt and regret and rooty ambition. You eat one raw. It crunches like apathy. It tastes like victory. No, it tastes like a wet potato that never got invited to a real party. You eat another. You boil one. You mash one. You try to fry one. It burns. You eat it anyway. By day 4, you hate them. But also, you love them. They're yours. A full bag. Your biggest haul. You name one. Gregory, too. He's the best one. Save him for last. Winter doesn't arrive gently. Falls on the town like a brick through a window. Sudden, loud, and completely inconsiderate. The mud freezes into jagged patterns that cut your souls. The wind acquires opinions and expresses them directly into your bones. Your breath fogs, then apologizes, then disappears. And suddenly, you become noticeable. Not in a good way. Not because you're clever or charming or wore a hat with flair. No, it's because things have started going missing. Firewood. Ends a wheel of cheese someone swears they saw last Tuesday and people need someone to blame. You are someone. They remember your name now, or a version of it.
That boy who lurks.
The one with the spoon? The barefoot disappointment? Doesn't matter. You're a character in their winter story. The one where you probably took something you didn't. Not this time, but Winter doesn't care. The Reeve asks questions. Too many. His boots are clean, which makes you suspicious of him, but unfortunately, no one listens to you. He pokes around your usual haunts. The alley, the heap, the corner behind the blacksmiths with the warm rock. He finds nothing, which he interprets as cleverness. They call you clever now. Before, you were a nuisance. Now, you're a cunning threat. The transformation would be flattering if it weren't so cold and miserable. You try to stay invisible. Doesn't work. Your footprints are too honest in the snow. Every path you take gets traced backward by someone with nothing better to do. You step in other people's tracks to confuse them. It works. Briefly, until they decide that's more suspicious. The baker accuses you of stealing flour, but you didn't. You saw a rat do it. A fat, triumphant rat. No one believes you. Rats, they say, don't carry sacks. This one did. Probably had cousins. You didn't. A guard follows you for 2 days, subtly, which is to say, not subtly at all. He hums loudly. He sneezes when you duck behind carts. You name him Gregory III. You're not sure if it's affection or survival humor anymore. You try to keep warm. You huddle in a barn. The hay is damp. The cow doesn't like you. You share eye contact until she snorts. You lose the standoff. At night, you dream of Florida. I don't know what Florida is. It hasn't been invented yet. But you imagine it's warm, distant, and has no turnips. You eat a bit of frozen bread you hid in your sleeve 2 days ago. It breaks in half like your spirit. You eat it anyway. The festival of St. Hugh comes once a year. That magical time when the town pretends it. It's happy and you pretend not freezing to death behind a wagon. There's music, sort of. A group of children with recorders and a monk who thinks rhythm is for sinners. There's food, also sort of. Mostly bread shaped like saints and porridge shaped like disappointment. But it's warm. The air smells of cloves, burnt honey, and the reckless optimism of people pretending winter hasn't ruined them yet. You arrive cautiously, not because you're unwelcome, although you are, but because you know how festivals work. They draw attention, and attention draws suspicion. And suspicion, for you, draws stockades, turnips, and the lingering scent of shame. You drift along the edges. No one stops you. You're not at a dog. It nods back. Probably there's music near the fountain and a barrel of watered-down ale for the poor. You drink a cup. Tastes like stale socks, but goes down like memory. For a moment, you feel human, full adjacent, festive even. And then the candle goes missing. It was on the altar. Big one. Beeswax. Thick as your forearm, wrapped in a red ribbon no one could afford. But somehow there anyway. One moment it's there. The next it's not. And just like that, all eyes shift. To you, you are not holding a candle. You are not near the altar. You are halfway through chewing a mystery pastry that might contain dates or regret, but that doesn't matter. You're known. You are the thief. The suspect. The recurring character in the village's long-running drama titled He Probably Did It. They ask you questions. You answer. Too quickly. Too nervously. Someone shouts, "Check his sleeves." You don't have sleeves. Not proper ones. One is a frayed thread. The other is held together with wax from last year's candle. Irony, destiny, who knows? They don't find the candle. They find nothing. You're innocent this time. But suspicion lingers like a bad smell and follows you like a bored chicken. They tell you to leave. Politely. Then not politely. Then with a broom. You return to your spot behind the tannery. You stare at the sky. Stares back. You wonder who did take the candle. You suspect the monk. He seemed too passionate about wax for a man of God. Someone leaves half a saint-shaped biscuit near your pile of rags. You don't know who. It's slightly burnt. St. Hugh's face looks panicked. You'd eat it anyway? You meet him in the usual place, behind the stable, near the barrel that smells like cabbage's final thoughts. He's crouched low, fiddling with something shiny and broken. A buckle, maybe. Or the clasp from someone's forgotten coin purse. His fingers move quickly, with the kind of grace only hunger can teach. His name is Thomlin. Thomlin, the taker, he calls himself. You don't laugh. You want to. But there's something in the way he says it. Half joke. It's half magic spell. Like if he repeats it enough, it might make him real. He's thin. Everyone's thin. But Thomlin is the kind of thin that makes shadows look chubby. His ribs have names. His smile is all teeth and bad decisions. He tells you he has a gift. Light hands, quick eyes, a nose for pockets that sag with possibility. You ask how long he's been at it? says since he was old enough to walk faster than a shout. You're impressed. Briefly then, he tries to steal your crust, not from malice, from instinct. You both laugh, nervously. You split the crust. It tastes like brick and old flour. You eat it anyway. Thomlin dreams big. He says he'll be rich. Not rich like the baker, or the cloth merchant, or that man with the mysterious boots, no. Really rich. Velvet cloaks, golden buckles, wine in a cup, not from a puddle. He wants to retire in a town with more trees than guards. You ask how? He doesn't know yet. But he's been practicing today. He stole a feather. A feather from a hat, while it was still on the head.
Aye.
You ask what good a feather is. He doesn't know that either. It's about the reach, he says. It's about the rhythm. You don't understand, but you nod. Because the way he says it, you want it to be true. Shows you his stash, hidden behind a loose board in the cooper's wall. One bent knife, 2 buttons, a spoon, and something wrapped in cloth. He unwraps it with reverence. A coin, not a fake one. A real, round, silver coin. The kind you could trade for food or warmth or freedom. You gasp. He grins. I'm saving it, he says. You nod again. Then he adds, for something big. You don't ask what. You're afraid it might involve goats, or worse. Hope. Later, you part ways. He fades into the alley like smoke with opinions. You walk back to your barrel, unsure if you've just met a friend, a legend, or a future disappointment. That night, you find a feather near your blanket. A gift. Maybe. You sniff it, slightly chickenish. You keep it anyway. It starts with a dare. Thomlin doesn't believe in boredom. He believes in challenges, preferably shiny, slightly absurd ones. Today's target. The small brass bell that hangs outside the apothecary shop. Not valuable. Not even especially large. It's symbolic, he says. A trophy. A statement. You say it's a terrible idea. He grins. That afternoon, Thomlin disappears into the street crowd, like he was born from linen and mischief. You try not to watch. You fail. You hover near the baker's stall, pretending to care about day-old bread that could dent a table. Meanwhile, Thomlin sidles up to the shop front, humming like a man with nothing to lose and everything to pocket. The bell dangles from a chain, dusty and mostly ignored. It's the kind of object that has seen generations of confused customers and precisely 0 heists. You expect him to fumble. He doesn't. With 2 fingers and a flick of practiced absurdity, the bell is off the hook, wrapped in cloth and tucked into his tunic before anyone can shout. Thief or even that S? A bell not a pie? You gape. A dog barks. A woman sneezes. No one notices. Thomlin strolls back toward you, casual whistling and ever so slightly jingling. You hiss at him to hide it. He laughs and swings at once. A soft ting. Like a child proud of a particularly questionable drawing. Then, the unexpected. Someone cheers. You blink. A man on a bench claps. Finally, he says, that bell's been driving me mad for a decade. Others join in. Someone says the bell was cursed. Someone else insists it rang at random. A child suggests it summoned bees. Thomlin bows. Not deeply. Just enough to make you want to slap him and applaud at the same time. You retreat quickly before anyone starts offering rewards. Behind the Coopers, he unwraps the bell. It's dented. It smells like time and old regret. It rings unevenly, like it's drunk or haunted. It's art now, Thomlin says. You don't argue. You ask what he'll do with it. Bury it, or sell it to a jester, or melt it into a spoon. You flinch, he laughs. That night, he gives you a crust of bread wrapped in the bellcloth. It smells faintly of brass and petty rebellion. You eat it anyway? Thomlin falls in love on a Thursday or something like it. You're not sure it's love, it might be dehydration. But he spots her from across the tavern courtyard, a barmaid. With flour on her sleeves and a look that says she doesn't believe. In second chances, or clean aprons, he turns to you and says, she's the one. You ask the one what? He doesn't answer. He just smooths his tunic, which is impossible as it's more wrinkled than fabric, and pats his hair, which seems to resent the attention. Then he reaches into his stash and pulls out a single, slightly shiny, absolutely stolen button. A token, says. You say nothing. He walks up to her while she's carrying 2 mugs of cider and trying not to trip on a very drunk pig. Thomlin stands tall, taller than usual, just to say almost proud. He clears his throat, holds out the button. She does not swoon. She blinks. He explains, sort of, for you. From somewhere. She raises an eyebrow that could carve stone. He tries again. It reminded me of you, round and loose. She says you turn away. Then comes the bread, not the good kind, the backup loaf, if one kept for emergencies. An unwanted rodents. It arcs through the air with surprising elegance and hits Thomlin squarely in the pride. You applaud quietly. He returns to your side, brushing crumbs from his dignity. She's got spirit, he mutters. You tell him the bread might have cracked a tooth. He grins, showing all of them. Worth it. Later he ties the button to a piece of string and wears it around his neck like a charm. You suggest it might be cursed. He suggests you're just jealous. You're not. That night you dream of warm cider and bread that hasn't been used as a weapon. You wake to the smell of something vaguely edible. Thomlin has found a bit of fried dough dropped behind the tavern. He splits it in 2. You sniff it. Hints of beer and something that might once have been honey. You eat it anyway. Asterisk, asterisk. It starts as a joke. One of the stable boys calls him Thomlin, the taker, loud enough for the tavern yard to hear. A few people chuckle. Thomlin bows deep. Theatrical, entirely unwarranted. Someone tosses a radish at him, not in anger, in appreciation. He catches it. That's how it begins. By the end of the week, people start using it. Not just the poor, the bakers, the butchers, the coopers. Wife with the mole that looks like a misplaced raisin. Even the guards. Especially the guards. You tell him it's dangerous? He grins. It's fame. You say it's attention. He shrugs. Same thing. He likes it. He likes it too much. He starts standing a little straighter. A little louder. He wears his button charm outside his tunic now, like a medal awarded for poor judgment. When someone asks for help lifting a sack, he refuses. The taker doesn't give. You sigh. There's a performance to it now. He times his thefts. He targets coins that jingle, apples that roll, trinkets that sparkle. He steals a glove. From a noble's son, not even both gloves. It's just one. And hangs it on a nail behind the butcher's as a warning. Or maybe interior decor. The town watches him. Some laugh. Some whisper. Some just keep track. You notice things shifting. A guard follows him a little too long. A merchant double-checks their bag when he walks by. A girl clutches her hair ribbon tighter when she sees him smile. He doesn't see it. Do you try to tell him? He pulls out his latest trophy. A small wooden comb carved with flowers. Pretty, right? You ask if it's hers? He winks. Possibly. You ask if she'll miss it. He shrugs. Probably. You ask if he cares. He pauses. Then he says, they love me. Say they love stories. You don't say stories. Need an ending? That night he gives you a soft apple. Bruised, dented, stolen from the offering basket. You try to argue. Tells you to just eat it. You sniff it. Guilt. Cinnamon, maybe. Hint of rot. You eat it anyway. Asterisk. Asterisk. Thomlin says it's time. For the next chapter, he's outgrown this town, he claims. Outgrown the alleys, the familiar guards, the same 5 fences he keeps climbing. Wants roads. Fame. Bread that doesn't crack teeth. Maybe even boots that match. You ask where he'll go. He says, where they haven't heard of me yet. Do you? Suggest that's everywhere. He agrees. Proudly. He has a plan. This one involves slipping out just before dawn with a pack full of trinkets and a heart full of drama. He's got half a cheese wheel stolen, a crust wrapped, in an old prayer ribbon, also stolen, and a coin he swears isn't cursed. You ask what he'll do if caught. He smiles. They won't catch the taker. You roll your eyes so hard they almost leave. The morning arrives gray and sleepy. As Thomlin ties his tunic tight and wears his one nice sock, the one that used to be part of someone's hat. He tucks his button. Charm inside his shirt. For luck, he says. You try to wish him well, but it comes out as don't trip. He heads for the east gate, the one least guarded. If you time it right, he almost makes it. And then comes the pig. Not a guard, not a merchant, not divine intervention. A pig, fat, fast, and full of indignation. It bursts from a pen near the gate, fleeing a boy with a stick and ambition, and barrels straight into Thomlin's knees. He folds. Not gracefully. More like laundry dropped down a well. The gate guard looks over. He was napping. Now he's curious. Thomlin scrambles. The pig squeals. The boy shouts. A chicken joins in. It's for reasons known only to chaos. The guard walks over. Thomlin tries to run. The pig disagrees. In the end, they find the coin, the cheese, and a spoon with someone else's initials. The guard asks his name. He says quietly, Thomlin. The guard raises an eyebrow. Thomlin the taker. You hear about it from a girl at the well, caught by a pig? She laughs. Serves him right. You don't argue. You just nod and stare into the bucket like it holds the future. Later, you find the prayer ribbon dropped in the scramble, still wrapped around a crust. You sniff it, slightly holy, slightly sad. You eat it anyway. Asterisk, asterisk. They put him in the square. Of course, that's where all stories go when they misbehave center stage, flanked by gawkers and geese. The stalks are old, splintered, and permanently damp. Smell like rain and regret. Thomlin's head and hands poke. Through like a puppet someone forgot to cheer for. You visit him mid-morning. He grins before you even say a word. Have you heard? He says, as if he's announcing a wedding or an invasion. I'm the talk of the town. You tell him he's quite literally the sight of the town. He doesn't care. A baker's boy brings him a crust. A girl in a green scarf giggles as she walks by. Someone whistles. Thomlin tries to bow, forgets he can't, nearly sprains something.
Oh, you?
Hand him a sip of water from your broken mug. He says they admire me. You say they're throwing cabbage. A leaf hits him mid-sentence. He chews it thoughtfully. Could be worse, he shrugs. Could be turnips. You ask what happens next? Nothing, he says. This is it. Just the stalks. You raise an eyebrow, he adds. And a fine. A warning. Maybe a short sermon about the importance of property. You ask if he'll pay. He shows you his empty palms. Do I look like I have a coin? You glance down. Someone's drawn a face on his toe. Thomlin waggles it. Meet Lord Sockington, you sigh. Later, a monk strolls by and mutters something about consequences. Thomlin thanks him for the wisdom and asks if he's got anything too. Eat. The monk doesn't. But a fishmonger throws him the corner of a biscuit. Thomlin misses. Hits his ear, he says, close enough. The square starts to clear as the day wears on. Children get bored. Adults remember chores. Remains. Slightly sunburnt. Definitely smelly. Utterly triumphant. You sit beside him for a while. You don't talk much. Just share a turnip someone left behind. He insists on calling it civic tribute. You eat it anyway. Asterisk, asterisk, asterisk. You don't think it's possible. No one does. The stalks are not known for their flexibility. They are, in fact, a tool designed specifically to prevent theft, mobility, ambition, and personal dignity. Yet Thomlin, ever the contrarian, decides this is the perfect moment to test the boundaries of reality. It starts with a hat, a passing merchant, plump, pumed, and deeply distracted. Stops in front of Thomlin to adjust his boot. He sets his wide-brimmed felt hat on the edge of the fountain, precisely 1 foot too close to Thomlin's reach, and exactly 1 metaphorical mile from good. Judgment. Thomlin watches, waits. Then he begins his operation. Step 1. Squirm. Kind of deliberate, enthusiastic squirming, usually reserved for eels escaping buckets. Step 2. Lean. Far. Farther. His spine bends like a regretful fence post. His fingers wiggle through the side gap in the wood like pale worms escaping from purgatory. You warn him you're going to fall out of your own body. He grunts. Step 3. Hooked up with 2 fingers and a piece of twine someone tied around. His wrist why? Unknown, he snags the brim of the hat and drags it toward him, millimeter by noble millimeter. The merchant, now involved in a long conversation with his shoelace, notices nothing. Thomlin beams. The hat tips over into his hand. He lifts it just slightly, just enough to claim victory. And then the coin falls out. A single silver coin. You gasp. Thomlin gasps. Even the stalks seem to groan. You reach down, pick up the coin before it. Rolls into the fountain. It's warm, smooth, possibly cursed. You look at him, he whispers, for later. You pocket it. Then the merchant looks up, sees the empty spot, looks around, looks down. Looks at Thomlin. Thomlin sneezes. On the hat, the merchant blinks, grimaces, mutters something about vagrants, and retrieves the hat. Without noticing the missing coin, you exhale. Thomlin winks. You consider asking how many times he's done. This, he asks if you still have the crust from yesterday. You do. It's dry. It's sad. Smells like old rain. You eat it anyway. Asterisk. On the third day, they release him. No ceremony, no speech. It's just a creaky hinge, a nod from the reeve, and the quiet snap of wood parting from slightly bruised wrists. Thomlin stretches like a cat that's been wrongly accused. He winces, stands, up slowly, and bows to no one in particular. He's free, but not really. Because now, everyone's watching. The guards glance his way a little too often. The townsfolk lower their voices when he walks past. Even the children, previously his loudest fans, have become cautious, like he might steal their shadows if they blink too slowly. You greet him near the well, he grins. But there's something new behind it. Not regret exactly, but maybe. A splinter of uncertainty wearing a party mask. You ask how he feels. Tall, he says. Tired. You nod. That's fair. Stocks do things to the spine. He tries to return to old habits. He leans on barrels. He examines unattended baskets. He flirts with the barmaid again. She throws a turnip at his head this time. It's firm, well aimed. Hits with the thud of public opinion. He shrugs it off. You notice how quiet people get when he enters a space, how closely they guard their satchels, how much they remember. Now that the story has a name, you ask if he's going to lie low. He says, I never lie. I exaggerate. He takes you to the Cooper's wall, his stash. It's still there, untouched. A button, a feather, a coin that may or may not be the one you saved. He holds it in his palm like a secret, then closes his hand slowly and pockets it. Then he says, I might leave after all. You ask when? When they forget. You both know they won't. That night you share a stolen apple. It's small, sour, and already bitten, but still better than nothing. Thomlin carves a tiny notch in the wood beam beside the Cooper's. One for the road, he says. You ask if he's serious? He says, I'm always serious, except when I'm not. You don't laugh. You eat the apple. You eat it anyway. Asterisk, 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 it begins, as many great tragedies and suspicious meals do, with a pie. This one is real, steaming. Left unattended on a window ledge like fate is daring someone to be stupid. Again, you both see it from across the square. Thomlin stops walking, mid-step, like the pie has whispered to him. He doesn't speak. He just nods. Once, with the gravity of a man about to do something brave and obviously ill-advised, you say nothing. You know the look. It's the same one he had before the bell. Before the button. Before the pig, he signals a dog. You don't know where the dog came from. Possibly the same realm as thunder and tax collectors summoned only when the mood demands it. Scrappy. One ear missing, and already chewing something that used to be part of a boot. Thomlin tears. Strip of cloth from his sleeve, which is barely sleeved to begin with, and ties it to the dog's tail. He whispers something into its ear. The dog looks unimpressed, but clearly willing to commit minor arson for a scrap of gristle. Then, the routine begins. The dog runs. The baker shouts. The crowd turns. And Thomlin, while everyone watches the chaos, unfold in a blur of barking, shrieking, an airborne flower walks calmly to the ledge, lifts the pie, and vanishes down the alley. You blink. He's gone. Truly gone. No triumphant shout. No dramatic bow. No half-bitten apple tossed your way. Just silence. and the smell of something delicious drifting through the air like a taunt. You follow it briefly, half hoping for a breadcrumb trail, or at least a rude note. Nothing. You check the Cooper's wall. Empty. You ask around. No one's seen him. The dog returns hours later, tired and smug, wearing the cloth stripped like a medal. Someone says he hopped a wagon heading south. Someone else swears. They saw him on the riverbank, singing to a goose. No one knows for sure. You sit by the fountain as the sun dips. You find a smear of meat gravy on the stone. You scrape it with a bit of crust. You eat it anyway. Asterisk, asterisk, days pass. Then weeks. Thomlin is gone, properly gone, like a cough that vanishes just as you're about to tell someone it's not contagious. No one says goodbye in this town. They just stop showing up. At first, people shrugged, and they start telling stories. Not small ones. Big ones, ridiculous ones. Someone claims he joined a troupe of acrobats, and now swings from ropes in a city with gold lanterns. Someone else swears he married a baroness after saving her from a runaway goose cart. A monk insists Thomlin faked his own death by dressing a scarecrow in his tunic and staging a tragic hay accident. You don't believe any of them, but you don't not believe them either, because you knew him, his grin, his nonsense, his spoons, his onions. And you know if Thomlin was going to disappear, it would be like this: dramatic, confusing, and mildly sticky. Still, part of you watches the alleys, just in case. The Cooper boards up the loose plank. The stocks sit empty. The barmaid sharpens her bread loaves with visible joy. The dog retires, presumably to somewhere with fewer instructions and more bones. You miss him, not every day. Just when something strange happens. When a coin rolls under a cart. When a pie vanishes. When a child giggles and whispers, "He took it," like the taker. You smile. You never told them that nickname started as a joke? One day you find something. Behind your usual spot by the tannery, a crust, wrapped in old cloth. It's stale. Very stale. Stiffer than philosophy and almost as dry. There's a button tucked into the fold. You recognize it. It's the one he wore before the barmaid and the bread. Laugh. Loud enough to wake the flies. You don't say anything to anyone. You just sit there, with the cloth in your lap, the crust in your hand, and the memory of a boy who never had a plan, only a purpose. And the purpose was this: to keep moving. You break the crust in half, offer it to no one, then eat your half. Even now, you eat it anyway. Asterisk, 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 it starts with a mistake. A loud night, a spilled drink, a misunderstanding involving a borrowed stool, and a man who insists he invented barley. You laugh a little too loudly, duck a little too slowly. Before you can finish saying "I wasn't involved," someone grabs you by the collar. The guard doesn't ask questions. That would imply curiosity. He simply drags you to the edge. Of town to the holding cell, you expect a short stay. A night, maybe two. A slap on the wrist. Sermon about decorum and not throwing spoons in taverns, even if they were aimed at rats. You don't expect. This daughter groans as it opens. It sounds like someone apologizing with their last breath. The guard pushes you inside. Then you hear it. The clank. Not a click. A clank. The kind of sound that has weight. It means someone has no plans to open it soon. You stand in the dark. The cell is damp, not regular damp. Not cozy wet like a flooded cottage. This is ancient damp. Stone that sweats sorrow. Floor that weeps cold. Air that smells like moss and forgotten breath. You move slowly, hands outstretched like a faithless monk. You find the wall, then the other wall. Then something that might be a bench or an unusually patient corpse. You sit. It creaks. You don't ask questions. Time doesn't pass. It lingers. It circles. It's like a fly that forgot what it was looking for. You expect someone to come. They don't. Expect food or water, or at least shouting. Nothing. You shout. Your voice echoes, not in a grand dramatic way, in a tired, sarcastic way, like the room is mocking you. You try again. It echoes less. Even the walls are bored. Eventually you sleep. You wake up colder, hungrier, slightly damper. You lick a rock, just to see. It tastes like defeat and mildew. You spit, then lick it again, just in case. There's no window, no torch. There's no smell of fire. Just stone your own breath and a small sense that no one's checked this place in a long time. Maybe they forgot you. Maybe they forgot this. You run your hand along the wall. There are scratches, tallies maybe, names. A small drawing of something that might be a cat or a terrified face. You stop counting. You tell yourself someone will come in the morning. Then you realize you don't know. It's still night. You laugh. It echoes. You stop laughing. You were told clearly, politely, with a firm pat on the shoulder, that this was temporary. A minor holding. A little mix-up. A routine inquiry. You'll be out before the candles burn down, they said. You believed them? Because you still believed in things back then like bread delivery, fair justice, and the concept of candles? But that was... what? A week? A month? A turnip harvest ago? Now it's cold again. The seasons have changed. You can tell not by the light, there isn't any, but by the shift in the air. When the stones grow sharp with cold and the rats get fluffier, you know, winter's back again. You lost track sometime during the middle season, the wet one, with all the coughing. You called it sneeze month. You had a calendar system, scratched into the wall with a pebble and a sense of grim optimism. Days marked with circles or triangles. You forget why you used triangles. You stopped counting after triangle 40-7. They still haven't come. Sometimes you hear things, footsteps, distant bells, a scream, or a donkey in pain. You used to shout back. Now you just listen, then sleep, then wake. There's a slot in the door. Once a day, or what feels like once a day, it opens. A hand slides in food. You never see the face, just a bowl, always wooden, always damp. Sometimes it's porridge, sometimes soup, sometimes... Neither today it's porridge. It tastes like nothing. But also, like every day before, you eat it anyway. You've made friends with the scratchings on the wall. There's one shaped like a duck, or a very hopeful ghost. You named it Gregory. You talk to Gregory more than you should. You tell him your plans. You ask if he thinks they'll remember you. Gregory does not. Respond, you say that's fair. The worst part isn't the hunger, or the cold, or the smell, which is like someone boiled shoes in onion water and forgot to open a window. The worst part is knowing they said temporary. The confidence, with authority. With a smile, you whisper the word sometimes. Temporary, like a prayer, or a lie that used to wear boots, and you wonder if anyone on the outside still says it too. Asterisk, 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 it starts as a cough. Not your cough, you know your cough. This one is raspier, angrier, like a sack of flour trying to protest. It comes from above. Not loud, not clear, but there. You freeze, spoon halfway to mouth. Porridge halfway to being regret, then nothing. You whispered nothing then, a wheeze. A shuffle. A sound that can only be described as damp elbow dragging across regret. You speak again, louder this time. Hello? A pause. Then a voice. Is it Tuesday? You're not sure? Time stopped mattering around the 40th. Triangle on your wall? You say yes. Or maybe. Or both. The voice chuckles. Or chokes. Hard to tell. You ask who they are? The voice says, I used to be someone. You nod, even though they can't see. You relate. It becomes a routine. Every so often, maybe mornings, maybe not, you call up, and they respond, always from above. Never clear, never specific. You ask how long they've been there. They say, longer than Tuesday. You ask if they know a way out. They laugh. Definitely laugh. It's upwards, probably. You ask if they remember how they got here? No, they say, but I remember falling asleep during a sermon and waking up here. So I think my sin was snoring. Try to laugh. Your throat makes a dusty noise. You ask their name? They say Gregory. Of course, you tell them that's the name of your wall duck. They say, tell him I said hello. You consider that maybe everyone who ends up here becomes a Gregory eventually, that the cell has a limit not of space, but of identity. That the further you sink, the fewer names you keep. You hear them cough again, slow one, like parchment folding. You ask if they want to escape. They say, what would I do? Go back to sermons. You don't ask again. Later, you press your ear. To the wall, you hear shuffling, quiet, almost imaginary. Then silence. Not death. Just that pause between someone being and not being interesting anymore. You eat your porridge. It's clumpier today. It's possibly an improvement. You eat it anyway. Asterisk, asterisk, asterisk. It starts with a sound. A scraping. A slow, delicate scrape. Like someone trying to remove jam from parchment using only despair. You press your ear to the wall again because that's what you do now. Eavesdrop on stones and invent. Dramas in the dark. This scrape is different. Rhythmic. Intentional. Then a shuffle. Then silence. Then squeak. You whisper, Gregory? Nothing. Then the squeak returns. Closer now. It's followed by a faint thump and the unmistakable sound of something squeezing through. Something far too small. You squint at the base of the wall. As if squinting improves darkness. Doesn't. But your ears do the seeing for you. A rat. You know that sound anywhere. The soft, smug scamper of a creature with no moral compass and too many secret passageways. You wait, and then you hear it. A click, followed by a breath of air. Faint, cold, and smelling of stone that's never seen the sky. You crawl toward it. There's a crack in the wall now, subtle. A line that wasn't there before. You press it, tap it, whisper to it. Nothing. Another rat darts through. Carrying something unidentifiable and smugness in its tail, you poke the crack. Wiggle your finger in it. Nothing. Then you hear it again, the click. But only when the rat passes. It's a rat door. Not metaphorically, not spiritually, an actual door. Just rat-sized. Possibly ancient, possibly enchanted, possibly installed. By someone with a cruel sense of humor and small hands, you laugh. Because it's that or cry, or both. You call to Gregory, the human one. No answer. You sit by the rat door and imagine what's on the other side. Freedom, light, slightly better porridge. You try to lure the rat back. You offer a crumb. Rat takes it and leaves. You offer a prayer. No effect. You offer a name. Gregory the Fourth. Still nothing. Eventually the crack closes. Seamless again. Like the wall took a deep breath and forgot you. You return to your spot. You dream of squeezing yourself smaller rib by rib, thought by thought, until you two could fit through the cracks that never open for you. Your porridge is colder. Now, you eat it anyway. Asterisk, asterisk, asterisk. It's barely a hole. A gap, really. A suggestion of a circle. Carved into the base of the back wall just above the floor where the dampness collects like old stories no one wants to retell. You only notice it because the smell occasionally changes from damp stone to distant rot. It's a subtle distinction. But after 3 seasons of mildew, your nose has developed opinions. You poke at the hole. It's roundish, lined with something that might have once been wood or bone or very disappointed clay, just wide enough for your arm. Or your dreams. You reach in. It's cold, slimy. You try not to think about what you've touched. You think about freedom instead, or turnips. Whichever feels more motivating, you try your foot. It doesn't fit. You twist. You shove. You wriggle. It gets stuck. You mutter a prayer to Saint Unlikely of Escapology. Nothing happens. You pull back and reassess. You can see light. Maybe, or maybe. Your eyes are inventing hope again. You try head first. This is objectively a worse idea. But ideas are scarce, and this one at least feels active. You wedge your shoulders in. You do not fit. You wiggle. You gasp. You hiss like a kettle with abandonment issues. The wall scrapes your ears. The slime greets your elbows. With both confidence and cruelty, you sneeze. You reverse. Slowly, carefully, with the grace of a sheep exiting a wine barrel. You flop onto the floor, wet, defeated, possibly insulted by geometry itself. You stare at the hole. It stares back. You name it Gregory V. You tell it you'll try again tomorrow. You won't, but lies are allowed when talking to walls. Your porridge arrives late. It's thin today, extra watery. You drink it, not eat it. It tastes like the inside of a complaint. You drink it anyway. Asterisk, asterisk, you're tracing the grooves again. The ones you've memorized, like lullabies, sung by damp stone and slow time. Your fingers follow the scratches out of boredom, habit, and the vague hope that one day they'll spell a map. Or a spell, or at least a joke. Today, they do something new. Your nail catches on a line you swear wasn't there before. Short. Clean, fresh, by dungeon standards. You lean closer, squint, tilt your head sideways like a confused pigeon. It's writing, and not just any writing, it says. Still here? Thought so. You recoil, then laugh, then recoil again. You read it again, out loud this time. The words echo back like they're smirking. Underneath in smaller letters, Gregory the Sixth sends his regards. You sit back on your heels. You check the dust. No fresh footprints. No new smudges. No boot-shaped mysteries. But the scratch is sharp, newer than your fingernails, cleaner than your own wall markings. Someone wrote it recently. You call upward, Gregory? Silence. You tap the wall, other Gregory. Still silence. You glance at your rock, your duck Gregory, former best conversational partner. He looks smug today. He knows something. You're sure of it. You lean against the wall and whisper, is this a prank? The wall declines too. Answer, you think about it all day. You trace the letters until your finger aches. You try to remember if there's another cell, a side cell, a trick cell, a ghost cell. A rat scurries past. You nod at it, Gregory. Does not nod back. Later, you find a second message. Below the first, it says, look to the left. Lower you do. There's nothing. You wait then. Just as your eyes adjust, another scratch. Tiny, delicate. You'll know when it's time. No. You're not sure if you're hallucinating, being toyed with, or halfway through a very boring prophecy. You whisper, I hate riddles. The porridge arrives. It's a little warmer today. Almost food. Almost you. Eat it anyway. You're half asleep when it happens. That blurry place between dream and damp reality, where nothing hurts yet, and the air feels less like soup. Then metal grinds, rust moans. The heavy door, the one you stop believing in, opens with the reluctant groan of a creature waking from a tura. You blink. Light slices in like accusation. It's not much. Flickering torch held by someone with a limp and too much attitude. But compared to the unlit eternity you've lived in, it feels like you've just stared directly at the sun, the truth, and possibly your sins. A figure steps in. They don't say your name. They don't ask for a name. They call one Parang. Don't move. You don't know a pairing. Then again, you barely know yourself anymore. You consider answering, just to see what happens. But your mouth feels like burlap and your hair is performing a solo rebellion. Parang, stand up. Shape. Stirs behind you. You turn slowly, like a suspicious turtle. And there he is. A man you never noticed. Thin, gray, wearing something that used to be clothing, and now functions more like a suggestion. He stands, he creaks. He coughs a hello that sounds like a dying chair. You ask, how long have you been here? He says. Since the tax on shoes? You nod, as if that explains everything. Maybe it does. The figure gestures. Parang steps forward. The torchlight hits his face. Can't tell if he's crying, blinking, or just leaking hope. He looks at you. You look at him. He mouths something that could be goodbye, or beware, or bread. Then he's gone. The door closes. The light disappears. And just like that, it's night again, or whatever passes for night in a place where clocks are illegal. You sit for a while. You listen for another voice. You call softly, Gregory. No answer. Eventually, the porridge arrives. It's back to being cold, lumpy, and judgmental. You eat it anyway? Asterisk, asterisk, asterisk. You can't remember the smell of grass. Not real grass. Not the kind that grows out of damp cracks or appears mysteriously on bread, but sunlit, crushable. Smell it before use. Ponit grass. That kind. Of freedom, gone. Erased. Like a dream you're not allowed to keep. But you do remember socks. Specifically, the last pair you wore before this place? Wool. Hole in the heel. Smelled like stubborn feet and rain. They were scratchy and uneven and possibly cursed by a sheep with a grudge. You miss them. Deeply, that's how far you've come. You sit against the same wall, beside the same faint rat door, waiting for a miracle or a mop. Your fingers drift across the floor like they're fishing for memories in dirt. They catch on something. A thread. Frayed. Tiny. Possibly string. Possibly part of a sock. Possibly the final nerve of your sanity unraveling in. Real time, you hold it like a relic. You tie it around your wrist. You name it. Gregory 7. You sigh. Today's porridge doesn't come. Not yet. Not on schedule. You pace. You grumble. You mutter to the air. At least socks were dependable. No one answers except the pipe. The one in the ceiling. Gurgles once like an old man considering a comeback. You sit back down. You try to recreate the memory of grass. The crunch, the heat, the scent of sun-warming green things into soft afternoon. It doesn't come. But the memory of socks remains. The way they bunch at the ankle. The betrayal of damp toes. The quiet comfort of having something between you and the world. Even if it barely worked, you whisper a thank you to the socks, to the thread, too. Whatever gods handle foot-related nostalgia, the porridge finally arrives. Late, lukewarm, slightly thinner than before. Someone's running out of effort, or oats. You hold the bowl. You smell nothing. You sip it anyway. Asterisk, asterisk. Asterisk, it starts with a breeze. Not real, of course, but you feel it. You imagine you feel it. And when you've been here this long, there's not much difference. It slips past your ear like a polite ghost, subtle, not unkind, faintly smelling of open space and imagined apples. You lean toward it. There's no crack, there's no opening, no secret passage newly formed. Just stone, just dark, just you. Still. Something you close your eyes, and there you are outside, not here. Somewhere with wind, with clouds that move like thoughts, and people who don't check your sleeves for reasons. You're walking barefoot through mud that doesn't accuse you. There's a road, and it doesn't end in walls. Someone is laughing. It might be you. You let it build. A cart rolls by. Woman hands you bread. It's warm. You don't ask why. You bite in. It tastes like not despair. You keep walking. No one follows. In your escape, you own a socked one. Clean. Not matching anything. But yours, you name it Gregory the 8th. You cross a bridge. You don't look back. You. Hear bells not the kind that signal punishment or vespers, but celebratory bells. Joyful, unnecessary bells. You dance, badly with purpose. Your feet ache with motion instead of mold. Then, the clank, the real one. Back here, the food slot opens. A bowl slides in. The breeze vanishes. The dream folds itself like laundry, and it waits for tomorrow. You open your eyes. You are still here. The porridge today is thicker, lumpy, unsure of its own. Identity, you stare at it for a long time. You whisper, I was dancing. It does not respond. You sip. It tastes like forgetfulness. You sip it anyway. Asterisk, 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 it happens quietly. No clank this time. No stomp of boots, no grunt of effort. Just the soft scrape of metal, like someone unsealing a memory. You blink in the dark. Uncertain if you imagined it, but no, the light is real this time. Pale, dusty, cautious. The door opens. You don't move at first. You think it's a trick. Like the rat door again, a brief illusion designed to mock your optimism. This isn't a crack in the stone. It's a proper door with air behind it. Air that doesn't smell like old soup in confession. A man steps in, not a guard, not someone you recognize. He's dressed plainly like someone who owns a chair. He squints at a paper, then at you, then back at the paper. His mouth moves around. Your name like he's not sure it fits. Is this? You shrugged. He nods anyway. You're being released. You hear the words.
No.
You understand them. But your body doesn't. Your legs are busy deciding whether to trust your spine. Your hands forget how to be hands. You stand slowly, cautiously, like the floor might accuse you of something. He gestures to the door. You hesitate. You glance back at the wall. At Gregory the duck. At the tally marks. At the drain that rejected. You. At the empty bowl. At the corner where you used to imagine sunbeams. All the small things that filled your world with repetition and strange comfort. He says again, you can go. You ask where. He frowns out. You whisper, is there porridge? He doesn't laugh. He just says there's bread. You take one step. It feels wrong. Another, the air changes. It smells different, cleaner, but somehow emptier, like it hasn't yet earned its odors. You miss the mildew. A little. Just a little. You pause in the doorway. You turn back. You nod once. To the cell. To the scratches. To the silence. Then you walk forward. Someone hands you a heel of bread. It's dry. It's not warm. It has seeds. You eat it anyway. Asterisk, asterisk, asterisk. You used to think he was kind. The noble who rode past twice a month. Scattering coins to children like crumbs to particularly scrappy birds. He wore velvet. He waved. He smelled like lemon and inherited comfort. People clapped when he rode through, though no one quite knew why. You remember thinking, he must be good. Now you understand. He wasn't being generous. He was softening. The blow. Because after the coins came the notices. The levies. The fines. New taxes. With old names. A pig tax. A roof tax. A damp soil proximity contribution. Words twisted like pretzels around the simple fact he took and you paid. Cheerfully, if he was lucky. Quietly, if you knew what was good for you. The noble's steward arrives one morning. You're still chewing breakfast. Bread with the texture of bad mood, when he knocks with a document and an apology that doesn't quite reach his eyebrows. The Lord, says, requires access to the south corner of your hut. For shade. For the manor's new berry contemplation. Pavilion, you blinked, he smiles, as if berries must be contemplated somewhere. And you should feel honored. The corner includes your goat. You explain this? He nods sympathetically. The goat may remain so long as it contemplates silently. You agree? Because the alternative is a fee. And the fee costs more than the goat and your roof combined. Later that week, you find out your well water is now under review, which means it's his. Then your path becomes a private noble foot route, which means walk around. Through nettles again. You complain to the reeve. The reeve tells you to be grateful. It's not theft, he says. Stewardship. You nod. Then you say, can I be a steward? He laughs so hard he nearly drops his quill. The next day your fence is repainted. Paint smells expensive and wet. It spells his name. You are now, apparently, a tribute wall. You ask the steward if that's necessary. He says, it's symbolic. You ask, of what? He says, of gratitude. That night, your goat chews a piece of the painted fence. You don't stop her. The paint smells like elderberries and arrogance. You smell it anyway. It arrives in a cart with ribbons and trumpets and a banner that reads from your lord with great benevolence. The word benevolence is misspelled. The goat snorts. You step outside, expecting perhaps a sack of flour, or a blanket, or even something absurdly impractical.
Act.
Like a pear carved into the shape of the noble's face. Instead, it's a pig, a large one, pinkish, nervous, with eyes like someone who's been promised to, much and understands disappointment. Intimately, the steward clears his throat. A gift, he says. You ask why? He unrolls a scroll. For your loyal service to the estate and for refraining from complaints regarding the footpath redirection project. You stare, the pig squeals. You ask, and what am I meant to do with it? He beams. Raise it, feed it, and then, once plump, deliver it to the manor as part of the spring graciousness banquet. You blink. So, it's not for me. He frowns. Of course it is. Until it's not. You look at the pig. The pig looks back. You both reach the same conclusion. This is not a win. Still, you take it. Because refusing would require filling. Outform 19C, rejection of generosity, which comes with a public frown from the reeve and a fee equal to 1.5 pigs. You name it, Gregory. He's muddy within the hour. By nightfall, he's eaten a boot your kindling pile and your one good sock. He snores like someone trying to protest in Morse code. Try not to resent him. He grows. So does your irritation. Every few days, someone from the manor checks in. How's the gift? You smile tightly, delighted. They nod. Be sure not to let him get too lean. We want him cheerful looking on the platter. You stop smiling. The goat headbutts the steward. You don't intervene. The pig finds a potato in your compost heap. He offers it to you like peace. It's slightly rotten. You eat it anyway. Asterisk, asterisk, asterisk one morning. You wake up to find a marker stone in your field just there. It's like a toad that's always been there but suddenly learned how to wear a sign. It's painted, ornate, smug. On it are 4 words, property of the Lord. Stare at it. The goat stares at it. You both blink a few hours later. A clerk arrives. He has the expression of someone whose boots are tight and whose soul is smaller. He carries a clipboard, an object that instantly makes anything sound official, even nonsense. He informs you quite calmly that you are now renting your own plot. You explain cautiously, politely, in the tone one uses with people who carry. Pensate this land has been in your family for 3 generations. You even gesture vaguely toward a tree stump and a rock as evidence of ancestral presence. The clerk nods sympathetically and says yes, but it's also part of the nobles. Expanded contemplative holdings. You ask what that means? He reads from the clipboard. Any land that may, from certain angles, be seen by his lordship while meditating. You look toward the manor. It's barely visible. If his lordship were to meditate facing precisely west, while standing on one foot and squinting, he might see your compost pile. You say as much. The clerk nods. Exactly, and so a small fee applies. You ask how small? He replies, depends on how much you blink. You think he's joking? He is not. Later that week, you receive a scroll. It itemizes your blinks Tuesday, 19 Wednesday, 26 includes. 3 siblings Thursday, 12, but one very slow one, which was deemed suspicious. You try to protest. You're told to submit Form 34H, denial of excessive eye moisture, which requires 3 witnesses and a neutral goat. Gregory is not considered. Neutral, you pay the fine. You consider blinking less. You try keeping your eyes wide open during. The entire afternoon, AB flies in. You blink anyway. The porridge that day is unusually salty, possibly from your own tears. You eat it anyway. Asterisk, asterisk, asterisk. The invitation does not arrive. Not by scroll, not by pigeon, not even through one of those smug footmen who deliver bad news with excellent posture. But the feast happens anyway, you hear it. Long before you see it, it starts with laughter.
How smelly laughter.
Full-bellied, well-fed, confident laughter, the kind that doesn't echo inside small cottages or follow moldy bread. Then come the smells, roasted things, spiced things, boiled things that aren't sad. You know the scent because you grew it. The carrots, the leeks, the hard potatoes with slightly judgmental shapes, they came from your field, picked by your hands, it's paid for with sore knees and one unfortunate incident involving a hoe and your foot. You remember? You remember all of it? You approach the manor slowly. Not to join, of course, that would be absurd. You don't belong there. You know that? But you do belong near it, just close enough to lean on the outer fence and pretend you're stretching. There they are. Nobles in layers of silk. Gold forks. Silver laughter, bread with crusts that don't shatter, and in the center, your turnips. Arranged in a stack that makes them look ... proud. Like they earned this. One of them has a garnish. You scoff, you never garnish. You hear the steward praising local produce, that once mentioning whose hands plucked it from the mud. He uses words like seasonal and authentic and delightfully peasanty. You grip. The fence. You wonder if it would be rude to scream that one had a worm in eye too. But you don't. Instead, you watch as someone in a hat the size of a reasonable goat slices into your squash. You feel it. Not emotionally, physically, somewhere between your ribs and your memory. Gregory the pig trots up beside you. He snorts. You nod. You both stare. Eventually, someone notices you. A boy, young bored, points at the fence. Should that one be? Looking. The steward glances over. He says, "They helped grow the food." The boy shrugs. "Can't they eat some?" The steward frowns. "That's not how gifts work." You walk home. There's leftover porridge in the bowl. It's cold. It's yours. You eat it. Anyway, asterisk, 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 you are just walking, not sprinting, not stomping. Just existing forward in the most economical way possible. 2 feet, one direction, minimum noise. The sun was doing that thing where it pretends to be warm. The wind was behaving. Even Gregory the goat was in a non-chaotic mood. And then you heard the hooves, royal hooves. You could tell they had rhythm, confidence. The sound of hooves that belonged to someone who's never had to dig a root vegetable out of frozen ground. You step aside, respectfully. You nod. You even try a smile, the polite kind, the one that says, "I don't need anything, just please don't notice me." But the noble notices you, or rather his horse does. It snorts. He reins it in with dramatic flair as if you just attacked. Him with a ladle. He lifts one gloved hand. You recognize that glove, soft leather, decorative stitching, the kind of item that costs 3 goats and a minor apology to your ancestors. The steward appears 5 minutes later. He is holding a citation. You are now being fined for improper perambulation. Subsection B, causing airborne dust, which inconvenienced the nostrils of the noble steed. Lord Hamsworth, you blink, you ask, "Is this a joke?" The steward adjusts his hat. Dust is a serious matter. You ask, "Should I not walk at all?" He says, "That would certainly help." You ask, "Should I float?" He pauses. You'd need a permit. Gregory the goat headbutts a shrub in protest. The steward flinches but maintains professionalism. He presents you with the total, 2 pence and 1/2 carat clean. You try. To protest, he hands you form 88D. Appeal of dust-based inconvenience. You would need to submit it in triplicate, accompanied by a statement from the horse. You stare at the form. You stare at the road. You think about whether dust can be trained to settle quietly. You pay the fine. You walk home slower, just in case. That night, the porridge tastes slightly grainier. You tell yourself it's not symbolic. You eat it anyway. Asterisk, asterisk, asterisk. It was a small bridge, not the kind that poets write about or nobles name after themselves. Just some planks, some rope, and a lot of swearing. You built it after the old footpath washed out, after your neighbor fell into the stream, came out with 3 leeches and a bad opinion of rivers. You didn't expect praise. You didn't even expect thanks. You just wanted dry feet. But then, one morning, there's a sign, painted, nailed into a post you didn't put there. The lettering is elegant, expensive. It reads, "Crossing fee, 1 penny, bridge. Tained by the Lord's Infrastructure Initiative." You stare, Gregory. The goat sniffs the post and pees on it. You nod. Later that day, the steward appears. Again. Same clipboard. Same eyebrows of disapproval that seem to weigh 3 pounds each. "Lovely bridge," he says. You grunt. He continues. "A fine addition to the estate's travel network." You blink. "I built it." He waves a hand. "Yes, but it's on noble land. Technically, per map revision 7C updated last week." You point out that the land only became noble after the noble redrew the map with his cousin. The steward smiles. Efficient governance. You ask where the toll money goes. He says toward future bridge, beautification. He gestures vaguely. To a patch of moss and a bent nail. You ask if you get to use the bridge for free, since you built it. He chuckles softly, as if you'd just asked whether porridge counts as a personality trait. No, he says. That would be preferential access. You pay the toll, you cross your own bridge. Gregory crosses too. They charge him a carrot. He eats it on the bridge, very slowly. The steward watches. Tight-lipped. You ask if the noble's horses will be charged. The same, the steward says, they ride with permission. You ask if you can get permission. He says, you'd need to build another bridge. You go home. That night, you have no carrot. Porridge is extra bland. You eat it anyway. You used to gather kindling there, not big logs, not the kind that nobles stack beside their hearths like trophies of slightly damp conquest, just twigs, small ones. Dry, if you were lucky, sharp. If you weren't, you never thought of it. As someone's forest was just there, growing, shedding, waiting to be useful, until the decree, hand-delivered on a scroll. So long, it trailed behind the steward like a disappointed tail. You watched as he read it aloud with the solemnity of a man describing shoe sizes at a funeral. Henceforth, all wood, leaves, mushrooms, mosses, berries, ferns, shadows, breezes, and sites within the western grove shall be deemed noble property. You raise a hand. He sighs. Yes, even the breezes. You ask, what about fires? He pauses. If it burns, it was the Lord's. You test this 2 weeks later, when lightning hits a tree and sets off a blaze that eats half the undergrowth. You rush to help, smothering flames with damp cloth, yelling for buckets, slapping at sparks like angry bees. Your hands blister. Your hair smells like overcooked betrayal. When the fire dies, a guard arrives. Not to thank you, to fine you. Unauthorized touching of noble timber during an active combustion. You stare at him, he adds. Also redistribution of noble ash. You look down, your boots are covered in soot. Apparently that's theft now. The goat sneezes dramatically. You consider framing him? You ask what happens to the burnt trees? The steward replies, they are now charred. Memorial features. A small viewing fee will apply. You sit on a log that used to belong to no one. It creaks beneath you, guilty and still warm. You think about how something can be noble property even while it's turning to smoke. The next time you need kindling, you break a chair. It groans like it agrees. That night, your porridge has a faint woody taste from the smoke in your hair. You eat it anyway. Asterisk, asterisk, asterisk. It starts with a drizzle. Just a soft, apologetic kind of rain. The sort that makes leaves nod politely and mud sigh in anticipation. You tilt your face toward the sky, grateful for moisture that isn't porridge. It feels almost generous, until the knock. The steward again. His cloak is damp in a way that suggests disdain for weather in general, and for you in particular. He's carrying another scroll. This one is rolled tighter, like it's trying to hide its own contents from itself. New policy, he says. You take a breath. It tastes like puddle. Rain, he explains, originates on the noble estates. High ground. Gravity brings it downhill. You nod, slowly, warily. Thus, any water that has passed over or through noble structures before arriving here is subject to a runoff redistribution levy. You stare. You blink. You want me to pay? Because it rained? He corrects you. Because it graced us, and then generously continued on to you. You ask, how do you even track that? He pulls out a soggy map. Apparently, they've charted flow lines, little ink trails showing exactly how a drop of water journeyed from the Lord's roof to your bucket. Your puddle, your cabbage. You look at your cabbage. It doesn't look noble. It looks confused. You ask, what if I catch the rain before it hits the ground? The steward raises an eyebrow. Then it's theft in motion. Gregory the goat headbutts the bucket, spills. You feel poorer immediately. You pay the fee. The rain keeps falling, heavily now. Your thatch roof drips with a kind of enthusiasm. You did not authorize later. You spot another notice being nailed to your fence. Clouds passing over noble sky, now considered observational property. You stop looking up. You stop asking questions. You sit with your damp cloak, your empty bucket, and your tax-stamped cabbage. Dinner's waterlogged porridge. You eat it anyway. Asterisk, asterisk, it was just a spade. A decent one. Too not fancy but honest. Wooden handle, iron edge, slight wobble that gave it character. It had been in your family longer than your surname. Passed down, sharpened twice a year. Cursed once during an unfortunate mole incident. The noble needed it, apparently. His messenger arrived with silk gloves and a very confident scroll. For estate landscaping purposes, it read, temporarily requisitioned. You didn't say no. You didn't say anything. You just watched it go, like a child leaving for war, armed only with a mildly bent handle. That was 37. Years ago, your grandfather loaned it. Your father asked about it. You inherited the silence every so often. Someone in the village would say they spotted it in the manor garden, used by men who didn't understand its slight lean. Once, and this hurts, someone said they saw it stirring custard at a banquet. You tried asking politely, respectfully. The steward gave you a smile that looked like it had been borrowed from a wolf. It's in active use, he said. You should be proud. You suggested a replacement. He nodded and handed you a rake. It was decorative, painted, made of something that might once have been metal, but now mostly resembled ambition. You tried digging with it. It broke. You buried the rake using your hands. It felt symbolic. Your neighbor offered to lend you his tool, then remembered he lent it too. The same summer, for the same temporary landscaping, you suspect the noble is building something massive. It's not structurally, symbolically. A pile of borrowed labor. You once saw a servant drop something in the manor courtyard. The clink echoed. You whispered spade. They didn't turn around. Now you dig with a stick. You sharpen it nightly against stone. Humming a tune you don't remember learning. It digs poorly, but it's yours. Your porridge has grit in it today, possibly from your hands. You eat it anyway. Asterisk, asterisk, he dies quietly. Not dramatically, not in battle, not falling from a tower while yelling about taxes. Just one morning, the rooster crows and the steward doesn't appear. The manor windows stay shut. The bread cart doesn't roll through, and the clouds seem unsure whether to weep or wait for further instruction. Then the bell rings. Slow, deep, heavy. You flinch at the sound, not because it's sad, but because you know someone's about to ask you to pay for it. And they do. Notice arrives by noon. The paper smells like ink and apology. A neat line of script. Death bell levy toll for the honorable ringing in memory of Lord Reginald of the broad estate and narrow shoulders. You look up, you mutter, he charged. Me for dust. You read on. Each villager is to contribute 1 penny, and, if applicable, a gesture of public grief. Suggestions include a bowed head, 1 tear, or a slow shuffle. You have no penny. You offer the shuffle. A clerk stands by the bell tower, marking names. You arrive last. You expect silence, maybe a sigh. Instead, he hands you a rope. You're scheduled to ring the bell. You stare at it. I'm what? You live closest, he says. And he always appreciated the acoustics from your field. You ask, does this mean I'm excused from the fee? He consults his ledger. No, this is a service in addition to your debt. You ring it once. The sound echoes through the hills. It's solemn, impressive, a little smug. You imagine the noble would have approved. You ring it again, slower each. Clang feels like a final invoice. You ring it 10 times. You are not told how many times is enough, so you keep going. At one point, Gregory the goat joins in, bleating with a kind of earnest confusion. No one stops him. When you finish, the clerk thanks you, then hands you a receipt for excessive emotional resonance. You take it, you go. Home. There's porridge on the table, lukewarm, slightly burnt. You eat it anyway. Asterisk, 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 and now the feast is over. The coins are collected, the doors are bolted, the fields sit quietly as if waiting to be borrowed again. You've walked through damp prisons and dry porridge, Through noble thefts and silk and quiet crimes and wood smoke, the goat is snoring. The candle's gone low. The bell has stopped ringing. Thank you for staying through to the end, for shuffling with us through the slow absurdities and soft miseries of medieval theft. If you're still awake, gently, you're invited to join us next time. Maybe something a little warmer. Maybe not. But for tonight, everything still echoes faintly. The bowl, the cell, the toll, and now as you lie there, you know the loop will wait once more for you.